To complete this bracket component, we'll be working with the fillet feature to break all the sharp edges on this model. Before I begin, I would like to quickly mention a few rules of thumb that are good to keep in mind when it comes to fillets. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to save adding cosmetic fillets until the end of the part. Second, I recommend creating larger fillets first and then creating smaller fillets after. As your models become more complex, you may have areas where one fillet feature may overlap with another filleted area. When this is the case, there can sometimes be geometry conflicts that exist, but by creating the larger fillets first, this will sometimes help you avoid those geometry conflicts. Finally, I recommend grouping fillets together in the same feature if they are to be the same size. I'll show you what impact this can have in just a minute. To begin, we'll be breaking these 4 edges here using one large 10mm fillet, and we'll move on to create all the smaller fillets around the model. I'll launch the fillet feature from the Features toolbar, and the Property Manager appears. The Fillet feature includes this Manual tab along with Fillet Expert. Here, we have quite a few fillet types to choose from. Unfortunately, I won't go into all these options here, as most of them are beyond the scope of this course. But most of the time, you'll simply be working with the Manual tab using a constant radius fillet type. With the constant radius fillet type, I can simply type in the radius here, and notice that the blue selection window is active, asking me to select edges, faces, features, and loops. For the first fillet feature, I'll begin selecting these edges around the model. When I do, you can see the preview appears. In case you don't see this preview, notice there's an option here in the Property Manager to display the full preview. As I'm selecting edges around the model, notice that with this edge back here, SOLIDWORKS actually lets me select it without having to rotate the model. This is often very convenient, letting you select edges directly through the model without continuously having to rotate. Also notice that SOLIDWORKS provides this flag here in the graphics area, giving you another way to type in a radius value. I can click right here to highlight this selection, type in a value, and press Enter once on the keyboard to see the preview update. I'll switch this back to 10mm for our example. Press Enter once to update the preview, and if I press Enter again, SOLIDWORKS will finish the fillet feature and exit the command. The fillet is now added to the Feature Manager tree, so I can continue on with the next fillet feature. Now, instead of launching the fillet command from the Feature toolbar again, I'd like to show you a convenient shortcut. In cases where you want to launch a command that you are just working with, you can simply press the Enter key on the keyboard to have SOLIDWORKS relaunch the last command that you are working with. If you've worked with AutoCAD in the past, you'll probably find this shortcut familiar. Once the fillet feature is relaunched, we'll again select the constant radius fillet to create the smaller fillets. This next fillet feature will have a 3mm radius, and I can select the geometry that I'd like to fillet. Instead of choosing the outer edges of the model, notice that if I select this top face of the model here, SOLIDWORKS selects all of the edges that are adjacent to it. Unfortunately, that includes these circular edges here, which I don't want to fillet. So, instead of selecting the face, I'll select the edges around the model instead. To remove the face from the selection window, I can highlight it and press Delete on the keyboard. But another way to do this is simply by clicking it again in the graphics area. By clicking it in the graphics area, you can toggle it in and out of the selection window. I often prefer this method because it's oftentimes easier to identify selection graphically than it is by the designator of Face 1, or in some cases maybe Edge 23, and so on. In this case, I'll remove this selection from the graphics area by highlighting it from this window and pressing Delete. Now instead of using the face, I'll select this edge here. When I do, notice that several other edges were highlighted. This is because of an option in the Property Manager called Tangent Propagation. With this option activated, any edge that is tangent to the original edge that I selected will have the fillet applied. Next, I'll select this edge here, and you can see the tangent propagation brings the fillet all the way around the tab. I'll select another edge here, and a couple of the interior edges of the tab. Finally, I'll select these two edges here, and I'll go ahead and click the green check to finish the feature. Now, I mentioned that it's a good rule of thumb to group similar-sized features together in the same feature. The reason this is convenient is because if this fillet size ever needs to change, you can simply make a change to one fillet feature. For example, when I edit this fillet feature, I can simply type in a new value, click the green check, and see that all of the filleted edges are updated together.